ability to cross-train each and every person that's in there, that there would not be any person that would not be able to handle anything within that PSAP center where the emergency calls come. I don't think it'd be a problem.
Okay.
One of the things that we put a lot of emphasis and a lot of time behind emergency disaster planning. All of you are in this room a couple of times a year, and of course we got John and David spending basically all their time to create a better response to disasters and emergency planning. Having all of our dispatchers in one location adjacent to Emergency Operations Center would be a much improved coordination system. You can imagine if we get into a disaster situation and we have a dispatcher here at City Hall, another set of dispatchers out there next to the EOC, that communications and that coordination is going to be much more difficult. So I would hope that the elected officials in the community would consider that in your evaluation. The reason we had put this on the agenda and the reason that the council talked about this at the retreat, at the recent retreat, we wanted to see if we could just have consensus that the consolidated dispatching is something we want to try to work together on with regard to the new jail facility. Again, there's going to be lots of questions, there's going to be some concerns that need to be addressed, but again, is this something that we can try to work together to try to make happen as far as the new jail facility? And if it is a consensus and we want to go this direction, then we would roll up our sleeves, the sheriff, John, me, if we wanted to have maybe a county commissioner or city council to join us to kind of work through all the details on how this would operate. Whether it would be all under the sheriff, if he would manage the staff, whether they would continue to be city employees and county employees working together. We don't know. We don't know what the best system would work. It may be an independent agency that the dispatchers would work for. So again, we would study this in more detail and bring back our recommendations to the commissioners and the council here in the next 6 or 8 months. But we didn't want to go down this road unless there was support for this concept of bringing all the dispatchers together.
Support for the investigation.
That is a co-location like this, you could call it a city.
Yes, generally, all your dispatchers will be in big rooms, and there'll be cubicles for law enforcement here. EMS in larger cities have their own set of cubicle dispatchers, and then fire would be on another side.
Generally, it's all in one location.
It's all in one location, but they have different dispatch consoles that they operate out. The one thing that for the right side of the table is that would also mean that city emergency services for utilities after hours and stuff would be also located in the same place, and all the dispatchers would have the capability of taking care of all the needs.
Where the emergency public service answering point currently comes in is over at current day. These are PSAP, or as they call it, for the county, for the whole county. That's where it comes in. And that is one of the things that's been under the control and direction of the sheriff's office for years and years and years. That's where PSAP is located at. That's a county function that comes into the county on behalf of everybody here. And yes, most dispatch centers are co-located, or you have dispatchers that dispatch for every entity within that county. City services, rural fire and EMS, law enforcement, every entity that needs any kind of dispatch service.
Was this accounted for in the design phase?
Yes, it was.
Your co-located? Okay. Any other questions?
I've got the comments that I've heard from some of the rural fire departments, and as several others have. I think the concern is they don't know whether it's going to work as well at this point in time, but they absolutely know that it's working well for them right now. And so I think the angst is is it going to work as well if it when it gets moved. And that's their concern is that it really is working well. I can't speak on the EMS side of it, but I've heard from several rural fire chiefs that there is some concern there that it's working well now, so if it don't work as well as we have to move.
When they say working well, what does it mean?
They like the exact number. There's something here they can tell you. mean, everything is smooth, the dispatching is smooth, when they're dispatched, you know, they have, the dispatcher has visual contact monitoring of who is there, what is still there, and so, I mean, I can see their point, but I can also see the point that what we need to look for, what's better for the community and the citizens. I just want to bring up that there is some concern there from that group that, you know, that's not taken, and I'm not saying that we are.
Appreciate that.
That's our charter, it should be our level of service increases, it's not decreases.
I honestly don't, I'm totally unqualified to decide what should be those funds. So I've been talking with the volunteer fund, and I think the most important thing to remember here is that we have a volunteer fund. So it's not quite as well staffed as you know, if we had a full fire department where we have people here all the time. So I've been talking with the volunteer firemen, and the talks have been inconclusive. They're all for it if it would reduce the response time. But they say on the other side, there are some operational problems that really have to be shaken up. A typical example would be that the first truck goes out, and that leaves nobody here at the station. The other volunteers are on their way in, and the truck going out realizes they need some additional equipment on the second truck going out, and having the dispatcher downstairs allows them some eyeballs downstairs who can interact with the new guys coming in to tell them exactly what's coming, and they would lose that person on the ground. So that's my comment, and I would rather hear explore more with the volunteer firemen before deciding that.
Well, they went, and exactly what you said, I think they got some concern, but they did go through a period before they had to dispatch here, when they had lots of problems. There was a lot of miscommunication between, and once they got there, dispatch right here in the fire station, everything leveled out, smooth, and it's working great. And I think that fear is still in the back of their mind, but it's just reverting back to what we overcame and got much better at. And I think that's a big fear, and it, you know, and it can be assured that this does not happen. I think it's fine, but I guarantee you, until it gets into the different cycle, that's going to be in the back of your mind that this is going to be happening again. And I think until they're all comfortable and convinced and shown, you know, how this is not going to happen again, is the important thing. Because like I told the sheriff before, he didn't have to sit here and convince me about this. The volunteer, all of these departments, the chiefs, Steve has done a great job, you know, bringing them all together. We all work together as one team, you know, and we didn't want anything this way.
Well, the idea is that the volunteers would be involved in this investigation. We would have Steve and the other volunteer fire departments to offer their input as we go through this investigation. And we may come back and say, it's not going to work. You know, we may say there's too much concern. We can't get over basically the comments and concerns of the volunteers. But at least we would look at this over the next 6 or 8 months and all the parties that would be impacted by this, and we'd come back to the commissioners and the council with some recommendations.
And the other short comment I'd like to make is I don't understand why you cannot arm the dispatcher downstairs with exactly the same screens that they have over in the central dispatch. You know, they see the call coming in, they see the address, and they can eavesdrop on the telephone conversation that's going on over there, so that when this call is transferred, they don't have to repeat all of the information. They're on the ball and they can know.
I'm not opposed to pursuing anything, I'm just, I think it's, as long as everybody who's involved is at the table, and gets to be heard, that's my thing.
Well, I had started working on this just shortly after I got in office in 2009, by meeting fire chiefs throughout this whole phase. I've been working on this diligently in cooperation with John here. We have presented it to Commissioners Court and we have presented it to the City Council. And like we said, we're thinking about what is best for the citizens of this community. I do understand what happened in the past, but the past is the past. This is the present. We have a new regime on board who is willing and capable of making sure that things work right on behalf of everybody, and that is myself. I am standing right here telling y'all that I am willing to make sure that this works out for the best of everybody concerned. If it comes back to where the rest of the citizens don't think that that's the best in their behalf, then so be it. But I have put 100% behind it in cooperation here with John, and as you heard from him earlier, we don't see a problem with the co-location of it, because we're sitting right here, each and every one of you hear exactly what happens at the same time.
Well, I think, from the city side, I think, to reiterate Red's point, is that it doesn't make any sense for us to impose a decision on people with as little knowledge as we have about the day-to-day operations and concerns that they have, city and county. So we'd have to be convinced that there's a pretty high level of buy-in from those people who are doing it, who have to do it day to day. Because our job is to accommodate them to be good at what they do. So that would be, I think, our concern from exploring every avenue of it. And it doesn't have anything to do with trusting somebody, trusting your word, Sheriff or John. We do. But our thing is, what do the people who are actually doing this think is the best thing? Because we don't know. We just want it to be good for everybody who's doing it. We appreciate all they do. And what I'm saying is, for a regulatory body to impose on them because it makes sense to us is not the right thing. And I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying that that's where we would back off.
Mayor, we do that every day. We legislate for the community every day. On behalf of what we think, the five of us think is best for the community.
I agree. This is a little different because it's emergency services. I think that.
You do that to us all the time.
Are you disputing what I said?
No, I'm not. I'm just reminding you that that's what we do every day.
Okay, well, to some degree perhaps, but it's different in this one because
lives aren't at stake.
How people should do their job in this kind of critical phase.
But it seems to me, through all of this, that it makes most common sense to put all of this stuff together. I'm sorry, but I don't believe that rural fire departments and emergency dispatchers and city police dispatchers talk Swahili, German, and French, okay? But that's the way it seems to me it's being portrayed, that all of these people speak different languages, and you can't have them talking to each other because they don't understand each other. I don't believe that.
I think, Tim, it's not that at all. I think the devil is in the details here. And unless you're a volunteer fireman and you are intimately involved with the calls that happen and the way that system operates and says, you're unqualified to make any decision whatsoever. So you've got to get a big buy-in from those volunteers.
I agree that it seems common sense, but I also know that there's a lot I don't know.
Well, I have always offered the invitation to each and every one of you, if you would like to spend a little time in the dispatch center that is currently operating, both here, I think here in the fire station, and what's operated over there at the jail. I am offering an invitation for each and every one of you to go spend some time in that facility so you can see exactly what happens, and then maybe that will help you be better acquainted on the decision that you will have to make here later on how is it going to work.
Thank you.
If you actually experience it, please come over and do that.
We're not opposed to putting together the subcommittee that.
Not at all.
No. One of the things that I think came out of it, and the reason I think it's enforced, and Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, but before the county was going to put in the infrastructure as a part of their construction plans, they need to know it, we're moving in that direction.
No, he said it was accounted for in the design.
Well, the space is gonna be there, whether we have this county dispatchers or whether we combine them, but,
The toys are not there.
right, yeah.
But the toys will be, have been included in the bond.
And money,
Gotcha. And I don't mean toys to ride.
No, I understand that.
You know, consoles are available in any of the expand.
We got big boys, we got big toys.
all right. Have we whipped this horse, buddy?
I think so.
All right. Thank you.
So the second item that we'd like you to give us direction on is co-locating, both the county and the city are always operate a combined DOC to think about putting the DOC to the retail facility, to the training room. Everything that I can say is with very minor modifications, that would be the best thing in the world. It would significantly increase our space, it would increase our workflow. Right now, all of our admin stuff is taken all over this building. If the modifications that are on the last page of your sheet, handouts there are approved by Commissioner's Court, I submitted them to the architect and submitted them to the sheriff. If we go through with those, that's the place we ought to be. If we don't, then if those aren't approved, then all we get is a bigger room, because we have to keep all of our equipment, all our computers, everything here, and we have to transport every time we need to activate, and it would be a logistical nightmare. But there's no other place big enough to accommodate a full-fledged DOC. I'm not sure, 20 years ago. This room has a capacity of 49 people. It could be shut down if we had more than 49 people. There's probably 54 chairs in here right now. So, do we really need it? Well, we haven't ever had an activation of the DOC for real-world situations in the last, at least the last 8 years. I don't know if they had one when the tornadoes came through in Stonewall or not. That was well before my time. The only time we activated was for our exercise. And so, if it's there, and it doesn't cost any more money to make the modifications, then I would say that's the thing to do. We ought to make use of that facility and those resources. It would not incur any additional costs to the city. It wouldn't incur any additional costs that haven't already been approved construction project. And I would tell you that that's probably the place that we need to go.
What kind of modifications you have in mind?
Sir, if you look on the very last page of the handout that I gave you there, we don't change any of the square footage. What we propose is that we eliminate a shower. We could use the showers downstairs if we needed to. We don't have to have one right by the training room or by the DOC. All I've asked to do is move the conference room down a little bit and put the storage room that was there up on top. And that's where we could have our administration and our storage for the DOC. We could store all of our computers, our printer, fax machine. That would give us workspace, and it would give us storage space, so that if the judge activates the DOC, all the equipment is there, all we've got to do is take it and set it on the table where the people would use it. It also provides us direct access into our resource units, which is the dispatch operation. Particularly with the consolidated dispatch, it's right next to our workspace, and if we need to order supplies and direction to the DOC manager, which is the judge of the mirror, and it's right there, and it significantly increases the workload. It also provides additional storage space down there in the blue area for IT.
You're comparing the description that's kind of in the middle of the handout.
So it doesn't increase square footage, it reduces cost because you eliminate a ham radio room, you don't have to run antennas through the building, you don't have to have a shower with all the plumbing and drainage associated with that. So it would reduce the overall cost of the project without adding adding any additional floor space, square footage. You know, on that last page, those square footages aren't the same, because I had to cut and paste to make it. I'm not an architect.
John, I think you said a while ago that this current room holds 49, is that right?
Yes.
And then this shows that the training room has a capacity of 50, that's not significantly more.
The square footage is significantly higher than the new training. It's set up for 50 because I told them we needed at least 5 tables with 10 feet. But that would not necessarily mean that's the maximum occupancy of the training.
What does the fire marshal on capacity?
I don't have the exact square footage search like this.
But on the other hand, it's immediately adjacent to that conference room, which is another, gives you some more square footage for whatever you need.
So that's the breakout room for the incident commanders.
That ought to make it worse and better because you have more people up there trying to get down the elevators and the stairs, so I think that's why you have a 50 on one.
Well, the conference room, the people that are in there would go into the conference room to have like your executive session.
Yeah. But there may be some additional costs to the city, depending on what is done in there and what kind of equipment is purchased for that. But also because of that raised floor that we're talking about putting in there, if we don't use that facility as an EOC, then we may not incorporate a raised floor in there. If we use it as an EOC, I'm still not convinced we have to have a raised floor, but we may put that in there, which we would be looking to see before that cost. And that would be, the numbers I have are somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000.
That the raised floor was included in the proposal that went before court. That was what was approved, is my understanding.
But we may not put it in there if we're not going to be using it as an EOC. And that's my point, is that if we use it as an EOC and we determine that we do need to have that raised floor, I think the city is probably going to be left to bear some of that expense, along with some of the equipment. Okay. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
So, you got a total of 40 to 60.
The way technology is moving these days, you don't need a raised floor in that room. I don't know, our people have told us that they're not convinced that we need a raised floor because of the way the cabling will be going. And that's something that we have to talk about some more. But our folks are not convinced that we need one. I don't know.
We can continue to operate right here.
I'm not saying that either, I'm just wanting everybody to make sure that they're aware that there will be some additional costs, likely. Let's look at it this way, we're building a jail facility that has been long coming, and why run it on the cheap when you build it, if you're gonna plan to have it for another 20 years? I'm just saying, I wanna make sure that these things are needed, not just put it in there so that we can raise the cost because we have $15 million to spend. No. Our county people, facilities maintenance people, and IT people are not convinced that we need a raised floor based on how you're going to be running the electronics in there. I want to be convinced that we need that before we spend the money. Fair. I mean, all these costs are getting paid by the taxpayers. We're all responsible for those resources.
Is the consideration of
Your IT people.
or the issue as to whether or not we agree that
You have an
it's
opinion?
a good idea to do the EOC there?
I think that's part of
That's
it.
for us.
I mean, like I said, we may not put the raised floor in if we don't do the EOC.
No, I understand that. But even if we do, we still may not have to raise the floor.
Possibly.
Okay.
Russ, you a comment about this? You deal with this all the time.
Well, actually, I don't have any facilities at all that have a raised floor. We have absolutely nothing. Everything that I've seen that has been built in recent history, where you have a situation like that take the university center is a good example. They've got raised floor in their technology rooms so that they can be reconfigured a bunch of different ways. If you don't mind cables running all over on the ground and the possibility of people tripping over them, then the raised floor is a really good thing to have. Because you can lift up panels, you can move stuff, and you can set it up in a lot of different ways. It gives you, if you don't have a raised floor, you got what you got. And if you decide that it doesn't work, then you just have to make something else work. That's what we do in here every time there's some, that's why we got cables strung everywhere.
So the options are a raised floor or a cable strung everywhere.
Well, I mean, you can sit down and you can plan for something like this.
But there's still.
Till the cows come home, we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, the bottom line is that the raised floor would give you a lot more flexibility, yeah.
Would you need that though if everything is moving to a wireless environment? Do you still need a raised floor if you're not gonna have a lot of cables running around? Or some of the cables go through the ceiling?
I mean, more common telephones would be tables, and tables of telephones might still have these cables. So if you go to do these PLC, go to the split raised floor, that's something y'all need to work out, whether you can do a PLC or not.
Yeah, we can make it whatever work. I mean, we always do on every issue.
Everybody has a new cell phone, we need phone wires.
The hard, the ability of a hard line, you can't just depend on cell towers in an emergency. You need that hard line.
And you have electricity also that you don't know exactly. You can't put a plug every so many feet, and with a raised floor, the way those things are configured, you can slide that stuff around and have just like things like that. It just makes for a better working environment. You know, there's trade-offs in the whole thing. You know, cost versus efficiencies and things like that.
There's consideration in that decision.
And I really think what we want to know is if the city wants to move the EOC down there, then we would go ahead and prepare the building for that move. If they have no desire to move down there at all, and would rather stay here, then we wouldn't prepare it for the next EOC.
And it doesn't say that, the city should just install any issues that are required specifically for EOC.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
It's not a city EOC. This is a county, it's a city-county EOC, and as a city taxpayer, I got a hell of a problem with having to pay for it twice. I'll tell you that.
We run into those issues with everything we do, Russell.
Right? But I mean, I'm a county taxpayer too, and I have a problem with something like that. I mean, I don't mind paying for things where that the city gets more of a benefit out of, but this is an equal situation there. I mean, this is a county EOC, in my opinion, and you know, because if there's a big emergency, it's not just going to be the city. Even if it is just in the city, it's going to be city and county. And if we're going to operate the EOC in the way that it is, that's just my opinion. I mean, mostly friends at the end of the day.
If the disaster happens in the city, you know, the city is going to be the one that operates the EOC. But that, I mean, that argument can be used anything that the city and county do jointly.
Right.
And so if you want to take that argument, then you might as well stretch it and say the city and county ought to merge governmental entities and just have one government then, which is what some states have allowed. There are a number of problems that they've run into, but and the city and county, Mayor County and San Antonio were looking at trying to do that. I think this legislative session, but I mean, we've got that argument. And I'm a city taxpayer too, and I totally agree with you, but you can't use that kind of an argument every time the city and county wants to do something together, because then basically everything's gonna get deferred to the county. So why have the city here at all?
Well, speaking logically, I don't think that this is any different than the dispatch issue. The consolidation